The Galactic Assembly Hall was a cathedral of light and arrogance. Species from every spiral arm gathered beneath a dome of shifting holographic stars, their voices echoing like storms across metal. The banners of the Great Coalition fluttered, in silent display, symbols of peace that only existed until someone felt too confident. At the heart of it all stood the Varnic High Chancellor, his voice sharp as glass. We must make an example. The humans have resisted compliance for too long. They have defied our trade embargo, violated our resource laws, and refused to share their technology. They threaten the balance of the galaxy. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The humans, again. They had entered the galactic scene only a century ago, late arrivals to the stars. But they had climbed from a single planet of chaos, from a cradle of storms, from a world where every living thing fought for survival. They were young compared to most, yet in that short time they had built fleets no one had expected. Now the Assembly prepared to punish them. Let the record state, the Chancellor continued, that as of this cycle, by vote of the Council, the Galactic Coalition officially declares war on the Terran Confederation. The chamber erupted with mixed cries of triumph and unease. Some races cheered, others whispered in fear. A few simply sat in silence, remembering what they'd heard about humans. In the far corner, a single observer, a tall, silver-skinned ambassador from the Threx Union, spoke quietly to his aide. Do they not remember what happened at Epsilon Prime? The aide tilted his head. That was decades ago. The ambassador's voice dropped lower. And the humans still call that a skirmish. The Coalition lost 8 fleets, but the Assembly had already moved on. The declaration reached the Sol system within days. On Earth, in the vast command spire of the Terran Defense Network, Admiral Royce stood before a projection of the galaxy, eyes fixed on the newly red-highlighted sectors. So it's official, his aide said quietly. Royce nodded. The Coalition wants a war, fine. Let's give them what they want. He turned to his staff. Transmit to all fleet commands. Activate Iron Protocol. Every ship, every dock, every orbital battery goes on alert. I want Mars, Luna, and Titan ready in 48 hours. The aide hesitated. Should we contact the Assembly? Attempt a negotiation? Royce's tone hardened. No, they've made their choice. The message that followed spread through every human outpost, every colony, every deep space base. It carried a single sentence written in cold precision. Congratulations, you just declared war on the most deadly species alive. The Coalition expected resistance. They had faced rebellions before. Empires had fallen and risen under their rule. But none of them were human. Their first strike came swift, a combined armada of 6,000 ships descending upon the Vega system, where humanity's forward base lay hidden beneath the blue glare of its sun. The commander of the Coalition fleet, Lord Rel, addressed his officers. We will crush them quickly. No drawn-out conflict. The humans rely on fear and reputation. Once we destroy their first fleet, their courage will die with it. When the human defenders appeared, the Coalition laughed. Only 40 ships, old models by their standards. Then the battle began. The human ships did not retreat. They advanced. Fast, silent, precise. Every motion calculated, every shot deliberate. Coalition scanners failed to lock properly. Their targeting systems jammed without warning. The first salvo from the Terran fleet tore through 3 cruisers before Rel's command ship even registered the impact. Impossible, he shouted. How are they firing through our shields? Unknown, replied his technician. They're using kinetic rounds, Admiral. No energy readings. Just solid metal slugs moving at relativistic speed. Rel's blood ran cold. Primitive weapons. Effective ones, the technician whispered. Minutes later, the flagship cracked open, and Lord Rel watched as the human formation cut through his armada like a blade through fog. By the time his ship's reactor failed, the last thing he saw was the Terran insignia on his display, an emblem of a single blue planet surrounded by stars. Across the galaxy, the Coalition's high command received the news in disbelief. The Vega fleet, destroyed. High Chancellor Varnic slammed his claws into the table. How? They were outnumbered 100-1. A hologram flickered to life before him, Admiral Kale of the Darnan sector. The humans use unconventional tactics, Chancellor. They jam signals, distort readings, and strike with precision. They don't follow formation doctrine. They fight like they mean to end the war in one battle. Varnick sneered. Then end them. Send the full core fleet. I want Earth burning. Kale bowed. As you command. When the core fleet arrived in Sol space, humanity was waiting. The coalition had expected defenses, but what they found was an iron wall. Orbital platforms ringed every planet. Massive shipyards hovered over Mars, churning out new warships by the minute, and at the center, in the shadow of Earth, floated the flagship Invictus. It was unlike any ship ever seen. A city of steel and light. A fortress with cannons large enough to vaporize moons. Admiral Royce stood on the command bridge, silent as the enemy fleet filled his display. Transmit to their flagship, he ordered. A moment later, a holographic image of Admiral Kyle appeared. Terran Admiral, this is your final warning. Surrender your fleets and disarm your weapons. Resistance is futile. Royce stared at him for a moment, then said, You should have thought of that before you came here. Kyle's expression hardened. You cannot win. Royce's reply was calm. We don't need to win. We just need you to understand what happens when you make us angry. The connection cut. Royce raised his hand. All batteries. Fire. The void ignited. Thousands of human guns spoke at once, unleashing storms of plasma, kinetic slugs, and missiles that danced through the dark like vengeful stars. Coalition ships fell by the hundreds before they could even respond. Kyle shouted orders, trying to regroup his fleet, but the humans fought like a storm made of strategy and fury. Their ships moved as one mind, one heartbeat, one unbroken will. Then came the Invictus. Its main cannon charged, light gathering along its spine until the stars themselves dimmed. When it fired, the beam cut through Kale's flagship and the 10 ships behind it in one shot. The explosion lit the Earth's orbit brighter than the sun. Within hours, the entire core fleet was gone. The news spread like wildfire. Worlds that had mocked humanity now fell silent. Empires that once boasted of power now whispered in fear. The humans did not chase them. They did not invade. They simply broadcast a single message on all galactic frequencies. This is Earth. We are not conquerors. We are not monsters. But if you come for us again, you will learn why the galaxy calls us dangerous. The assembly chamber, once filled with pride, now trembled with doubt. The delegates could barely meet each other's gaze. Varnick stood, trembling with rage. They dare threaten us after slaughtering our fleets? A voice rose from the back, a soft, weary tone from the Threx ambassador. You declared war, Chancellor. You expected surrender. You received survival. Survival? Varnick spat. They massacred us. The ambassador met his glare. Because you gave them no choice. Weeks passed. Human fleets moved methodically through nearby systems, not to conquer, but to ensure no retaliation came again. They rebuilt stations, cleared debris, even offered medical aid to coalition survivors. It confused everyone. How could a species so deadly show mercy? Admiral Royce stood before the Terran Council, reporting the aftermath. The coalition has withdrawn from all contested systems. They've signed a ceasefire under the condition we maintain defense zones. One of the council members asked, Do you believe they'll try again? Royce looked out at the stars. Eventually, they always do. And when they do, we'll remind them again. On the world of Varnick Prime, the Chancellor sat in silence. His empire lay fractured, his fleets in ruins. Reports flooded in of colonies declaring independence. He turned to his aide. How did it come to this? They were only one species. The aide hesitated, then said softly, One species that learned to fight extinction before it ever saw the stars. Years later, the scars of the war remained carved across the galaxy. Some worlds still whispered of the war of human defiance, others called it the Day of Fire. But among humans it was called the Lesson, a lesson that began long before the first spaceship. back when their kind had fought predators with stones and fire, when they had learned to rise after every fall, to adapt, to survive, to overcome. That instinct had never left them. It had simply evolved. One quiet cycle, a new ambassador from the Threx Union visited Earth. He expected a world of soldiers and weapons. Instead, he found oceans, gardens, and laughter. He met a group of children, playing near a lake. Their eyes filled with wonder as they watched ships soar above. One of them noticed him. "Are you from the stars?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, I came to learn." The girl smiled. "Then you should stay. We can teach you." He realized then that this was what made humans truly terrifying. Not their weapons. Not their fleets. It was their ability to destroy, and then rebuild something better. Across the galactic network, historians debated the outcome of the war. Some claimed the humans had won by fear, others said by strategy. But those who truly understood knew the truth. The humans had not fought for conquest or glory. They had fought because someone had threatened their home. And when humanity fights for home, there is no force in the universe that can stop them.